classical naming system. Now this naming system only deals with the multivalent guys on the periodic table. So all we're really learning now, just here at the end, is how to name the ones with the Roman numerals in the classical system. Okay. This system with the us and ik ending can be used for any element that has two oxidation states. If the element has a Latin name, the Latin name is used. So for iron, the Latin name is ferrum, and therefore we use ferrum as the base name. So for the low oxidation state of 2, it's ferrous, and for the high oxidation state of 3, it's ferric. And that's just the way it was done. Again, where does the us and ik ending come from historically? I don't know. Chemists, though, sometimes when we have to learn something that we don't know the background for, make a silly little saying. And our silly little saying for this is us, O, low, ik, I, high. Ik starts with I, you think of the high one. Us starts with O, you think of the low one. Okay? Now the length to this lesson, and I am looking at the time, the thing that makes this a little long is that we need to go over some Latin names for the elements. All right? So I do need this written down. You don't have to draw a fancy table. You really only need 3 lists. The element, the Latin name, and then the ion name. Okay, so 2 possibilities for iron is ferrous and ferric. For copper, it's cuprous and cupric. And I think is it 1 and 2? You check. You check my numbers. I'm just going from what I remember. Is it 1 and 2? All right? So when you get a name like cuprous, you still have to go back to the copper and pick the low one. Stannous and stannic. That's one of my favorites. I like that. Stannous. It's good stuff. I should have named my kid Stannous. That would have been funny. No, he wouldn't, but it would still be funny. Oh, Stannous. Okay, let's continue. What are my 2 numbers for tin? 2 and 4? So Stannous is low, plus 2, plus 4. Yeah, I got to watch what I say about my kids anymore, because all you guys know my kids. Man, I've entered a strange part of my career. Okay, now lead. The Latin name is plumbum. You may giggle about that. It is funny to say. It is funny, it's a funny sounding thing. This is plumbus and plumbic. And it's 2 and 4 as well, I think, isn't it? Plus 2, plus 4. Okay? That's why people who work with pipes are called plumbers. You've got to put the B in there and you spell it wrong. And that's because the pipes they used to use were lead. But now we know lead is a toxic metal when it gets into the water system, so now we use copper. Cobalt. Now notice it doesn't have a Latin name, so we just keep the regular name. Cobaltus and cobaltic. All right? So we can have a Nicholas and a Nicholic. It's funny too. It's just funny to say. So if they don't have the funny names in here, then you just keep the regular name and you put us and ending on it. Let's not worry about the charges anymore. I just want to get to the bottom at this point. For gold, we have aurus and auric. So you are going to need to memorize these Latin names. Mercury has a funny one. It's called Hg because it's like harargium or something. I don't even know how to say it. I never say that word. That's where the Hg comes from. But yeah, that's where those symbols are coming from. the symbols that are strange are coming from the Latin names. Yeah. Yeah, that's where our Cu comes from for copper. So for mercury, because, and I don't know why, maybe because no one can actually say this word, they say mercurous and mercuric. Mercurous and mercuric. And antimony is stibnium. Again, like where does that come from? That's where it comes from. Antimony is stibnium, and so that's stibnus. That's funny too. And stibnic. And again, you can check your table for the charges. All right? Okay, now for a couple of examples using the classical naming system, so we can give you some homework and then you can work on this in class tomorrow. All right, plumbic chloride. So again, the classical naming system ends in ic or us. That means we're dealing with lead, Pb, chloride, Cl. If you check your periodic table, you'll find the two oxidation states for lead is 2 and 4. So remember, if it's ic, it's the high one. So this is lead 4, chlorine is 1. And if we cross those over, that is PbCl4 for plumbic chloride. All right? The next example is cobaltous sulfide. So CO and S. Again, if you check your periodic table for cobalt, its two possible oxidation states are 2 and 3. So us is the low one, us-O low. So this is 2 on the cobalt and 2 on the sulfur. And so when you cross those over, that is COS. All right, now let's do a couple of them where we figure out the names. So here I've got FeCl3. Again, we can use the reverse crossover, bring that back up. The 3 goes with the iron, the 1 goes with the chlorine. Chlorine is normally 1, so this is iron 3. If you check your periodic table, iron has possible oxidation states of 2 and 3. 3 is the high one, so that makes it ferric chloride. All right, because the high one is ic. And I have SNO. Now we got to be careful with the O. Again, if I do the reverse crossover, we get a 1 up there with the tin and a 1 up there with the O. But the O is normally 2, which means they've got to be 2 and 2. All right, so you got to be careful with that when we've got an O on the end. So since it's a tin in the 2 form, and if you check the oxidation states for tin, their choices are 2 and 4. Because this is tin 2, it's the low one. So this is stannous oxide. All right? So there are a couple of examples on the classical naming system, and there is a homework problem that you can then do for that.